with the next, what's the next big flag holiday, Memorial Day or
Yeah.
4th of July, I'm gonna go on Amazon and see if I can buy sparklers in bulk on Amazon Prime and do that. But again, you have to plan it out. Am I done?
Yeah, no, I absolutely.
One thing of value we have is what other people think of us. So watch yourselves, budget your time. There are elements of this career where you have to spend time doing things that don't make money, but at the end of the day, this is sales. And some people forget that. You know, there's a classy way to do it, but your currency is the hour, not the dollar. The biggest, in terms of things that cost dollars, though, the biggest one is always the client event. There's ways to do that easily to limit the expenses of it. And there's different creative ways to do it, but I've had events where I've had great success spending $1,000, and I've had really big events where I went out and spent $6,000 on the event and everywhere in between.
Do you get sponsors for some of your events?
Yes, I'm very big on working with people who I know and I trust and who have earned my trust, and the people that I partner with, they've earned that, and I've made them earn it. But you know, go to your go-to lender, your closing attorney, your home inspector, your contractors, because I guarantee you they want to partner with you because they want more exposure to the people who trust you, because that means, you know, if I say they're trustworthy, my clients are going to trust them and they're going to get business off of them, whether it's whether they're doing a refi or they want to refinish their hardwood floors or paint their house or what have you. So partner with the people and, you know, make sure they understand and make sure your partners believe what you believe, that I don't have an interest in selling you one house, one time. I want to sell you 5 houses over the next 15 years. And I've done that. I have clients who I've done 5 and 6 repeat transactions with over the last 14 years. And I tell them, you know, I'm happy to keep making money off you, but you might want to stop moving it every 18 months. But, yes, I'm very big on getting partners to sponsor me in my events because it suits their interest, but hey, it also helps control the cost.
Absolutely. It reminds me of preferred vendors in new home communities, right? They want to use those vendors because they know it's going to close. So it's very similar. It's so important to establish those relationships. So, Angeline?
Yeah, just real quickly, for me, you know, what he described would be what I would consider to be your A list of prospects, and those are the people that you're going to spend the money to touch every year on a consistent basis, like he said, with the mailings and the events and even those personal phone calls. And I go a step further, and I also have a wider sphere of people that I influence daily, even though I don't spend any money to influence them. But they're on my social media and Facebook, and I'm just a really big believer in how important that is. You know, you just cannot believe all the people that are seeing what you're posting and they're paying attention, not to the minute details, but you know, my parents were here from Milwaukee this weekend, and then on Monday I went out and about my daily, and a few people were like, oh, it looks like you had such a great weekend with your parents, and I was like, yeah. And it's like everybody always knows what I'm doing, and I like it that way, and so I think that there's two sets of people that you're trying to market to, because it could be 2 years before someone that you just met is ready to buy a house or something. But for me, my personal goal is to always stay on top of mind as a real estate agent, and to be the go-to person when they think of real estate. So even if they have a question about real estate, or about what their house might be worth, or about if they need a contractor, or if they need a plumber, or they, you know, do have someone that wants to buy a house, I want them to think of me before they think of anyone else. And it always blows my mind when I talk to someone and they don't know a realtor, because I feel like there's so many of us. You must know a realtor. Whoever you know is just not doing a good job of making sure that they think of you when you need them. So
secret agent.
yeah, exactly.
Right? Yeah.
And I think that, you know, it's not just enough to know all these people and you can't just assume that they are going to remember that you're a real estate agent. But you also don't have to be out there super pushy, like, you know, directly asking for referrals and directly asking if you can come over and, you know, talk to them about selling their house. But just by being an active real estate agent, and even if you're not busy, if you don't have a lot of listings or you don't have a lot of sales right now, just be doing something else. Do open houses and then post about that or talk about that. When you meet someone or you see someone you haven't seen since last week, and they'll inevitably ask you, how's everything going? How's your business? So just have something to say, like, oh yeah, well I did an open house this weekend and I met some pretty cool people, or something like that. Or I went to an awesome training, on Wednesday and got a lot of great tips, and, post about that on Facebook. I mean, it doesn't have to be that you're selling a house, but just that you're always working.
Fake it till you make it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. And you are doing the things to get you more business, even though you don't have business yet, right? Even if it's preview, maybe you don't have an open house, go preview houses. Brandon, you got a client from showing a house to somebody else. Had you been even previewing the house, you closed a deal with somebody wanting to come in and see it. So you never know. It's getting in, like just doing the daily habits, the practices of getting into real estate. That's a great point, Angelina.
So I feel like as a newer agent, there's like two types of new agents, right? There's the ones that feel the need to say, oh, I'm a real estate agent, buy a house, who wants to buy or sell? And that's all they talk about. And there's the other type that just is afraid to talk about that. And it's like a really interesting balance that you kind of have to have. But like she mentioned, with social media and Facebook and stuff, you have the power to kind of control what people are seeing about you. Like, for instance, if you haven't seen somebody in months, then generally you kind of stalk their Facebook a little bit. You're like, oh, I saw your kid graduated or something. But you have the power to create that image that when people see you, they're like, oh, I see you're doing really well in real estate. So just make sure you're posting. Don't be a secret agent. It's probably the worst thing you can do.
And I love what you're saying about, being afraid to put yourself out there because you think, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know, even if you've been in the business a while, I don't know much about this area, so I can't talk to these clients. And that's just not the case, right? You can always say to the client or whoever you're talking with, let me get back to you on that. Let me get the information that you need, and I will most certainly follow up. So don't be afraid to not have all the answers, which I think is why, that's a big reason. That holds a lot of people back, I feel like, just from my experience. I don't know.
I know more than they do.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So,
And to piggyback on that point, sorry to interrupt, I'm very big on being authentic. When I was a new agent, I would look them dead in the eye and say, you know what, I could sit here and I could fudge something that would actually probably sound pretty good because I'm a good talker. But I don't know, and I want to give you the right answer. So don't be afraid to say you don't know.
amen. Yeah, absolutely.
Anytime where I think I know it all in this business, that's usually when I get my pride knocked down because I get a first, and I don't get a whole lot of firsts anymore. But anytime I do, it's not a good thing.
Yeah. Oh, I can only imagine.
It's not good.
So let's talk about your daily habits and your practices. Like, what do you do? Walk us through a day in the life of what you do every day.
In terms of what I do, I try to divide my day up between working on my business versus working in my business. And you have to do both. You have to keep the current clients well served, their needs met, make sure the transactions are going smoothly and that everything is on point and everyone has everything that they need, and that you are doing a good job of managing your client's expectation. Because at the end of the day, this job is managing your client's expectation and making sure that anything that could potentially happen, good or bad, they're prepared for it before it happens. The best people in our industry have the hearts of teachers, and that's what I tell my clients. When people come to me and like, hey, here you sell real estate, I'm like, well, I don't really like that word. Because I do and I don't. I'm a teacher, I'm a consultant, I'm an advisor. It's my job to educate you on the market so that you can go make decisions with my help. But in terms of my day-to-day, I try to make sure I have a healthy balance between working on my business and in my business. The biggest advice I can give to anyone who does what we do for a living is be wary about how much time you spend on your email. Some of the best advice I ever got is from a good friend of mine, Alyssa Hellman.
Oh, yeah.
And this is one of the best things I've ever heard from any coach. And I've coached and I've been coached by some of the best in the country. And your email is somebody else's to-do list for you. It is not working on your business. It is maintenance. Do not live and die by the number of emails in your inbox, and be careful about spending too much time. Prioritize your emails, but do not, so many agents I see in my office just sitting there for 3 and 4 hours just hacking away at their email. I'm like, guys, shut the computer, pick up the phone, go take somebody to lunch, go get a cup of coffee with somebody. So be careful about that. I also tell myself I need to spend at least 1 hour a day doing something to bring in new business that I don't currently have, i.e. prospecting, a minimum of 1 hour a day. Following up on emails is not prospecting. Social media is not prospecting. Prospecting is doing something intentional and on purpose to connect with somebody. The easiest way to do it is just pick up the phone and have a conversation, which is really hard for people in our industry to do. I get that. There's some days where I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to have to be on. And we all know what that means. You know, it's like you have to flip the switch. You have to turn on the lights in your head and be energetic, enthusiastic, you know, super outgoing in that mode. But, you know, there's a time and a place. Prospecting does include things like following up with leads from open houses or other leads, but again, social media doesn't count. And if I ask some of my agents who work for me at Nest as to what do you do to prospect today, if you even mention Facebook, they know I'm not going to count it. But yeah, so I spend at least 1 hour a day doing something to bring a new business that I don't have. I limit my time on my email, and again, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I do everything I can to be present in my relationships that I have.
And that's great, and one thing that you said, I spoke about it earlier, but you said, you know, I don't care if I don't have a reason to call, I try to find a reason to call before I call, but talk a little bit about that.
Sure, so if there's something that naturally occurs like I did with Hurricane Florence, that's a natural reason to pick up the phone and say, hey, just making sure you're okay. You know, that is a selfless call, that is a great way to add value to your people. In terms of asking for referrals, I'm very big on not doing it at every time. The metaphor that I always use is a referral is like a piggy bank, and you have to constantly be putting money in the piggy bank before you can make a withdrawal out of it. So I don't ask for a referral every single time I pick up the phone or every time I see somebody, but I do something to add value to them so that when the time comes where it's appropriate, where I think the bank is full enough, okay, I can make a withdrawal and I can ask for a referral. A good example of that, I had a big client event last Friday where I had 500 people show up. I'm like, okay, I wine them, I dine them, I set up bounce houses for their kids and balloons and face painting and snow cones, and mom and dad had an open bar, so, you know, they're happy. I've added a lot of value, so in the next 3 weeks, everyone's gonna get a phone call, and that phone call's like, hey, it was great to see you. Who do you know? That's a time, because I filled up the bank, now I can make a withdrawal, and I can ask for a referral. Social media can be a great tool on a case-by-case basis to figure out a good reason to call. If you see somebody's pregnant or somebody's kid graduated or whatever, just call. Another great call that I like to make at least once a year is, hey, I'm looking for good new vendors. You know, who have you hired over the last year that was a good painter or a good handyman or a good lawn maintenance guy? You know, I need good people. Who do you know that? Who do you trust? And clients like things like that because I'm going to them for help. But it has nothing to do with me asking for a referral. But then I will actually go out there, and I'm not just BSing them, I will actually go and I will talk to those people and say, hey, I heard you know, David Fleischman said you were a great landscaper. You know, can you tell me some info about you? Because then I'm looking for new potential referral partners. So, you know, there's a lot of different ways and the different reasons you can pick up the phone and interact with people that have nothing to do with asking for a referral. And again, it's just about being present and engaging with people. You know, don't pick up the phone and always ask for a referral every single time because people are going to get sick of it. You have to become, and this is the hardest thing to do, you have to become the natural resource to where they're going to call you whether or not they're going to buy or sell. For example, I had a drink last night with a past client who I've done 3 transactions with, and I was just sitting with him and having a beer. And I was like, so what's going on? He's like, man, I hope you're not going to be mad at me. I'm like, what, did you sell your house and not call me? He's like, no. He goes, I just hired a company to put solar panels on my house and I didn't call you to get your opinion. I'm like, that's okay.
That's good.
But, you know, but I'm present in that relationship, and for him, I'm his go-to resource for anything housing related. He's not thinking about buying or selling. But again, I took the opportunity to circle up with him, and then I immediately transitioned into my vendor conversation of, okay, who'd you hire? How much do they charge? How's the experience been so far? But it's just a good example.
I love that, being the resource. That's really good information, and being consistent, like Jordan, setting up your plan at the beginning of the year and actually following through. And Jordan, you know at the beginning of the year how many people you're going to call every day.
Yep.
Like, you are very detailed about what you're going to do to generate business for
Yep.
the year.
My weekly basis in terms of how I run my prospecting, every day, 5 phone calls. You can do that in 30 minutes. No realtor can sit here and convince me that you don't have 30 minutes to do with your day. I do about 75 transactions a year, and I have 30 minutes a day to spare. I make 5 calls, that's about 30 minutes. I do 5 handwritten notes a day. It's 25 notes a week. That's about another 30 to 45, but you can do that while you're doing other stuff. And then I have 2 face-to-face meetings with the client a week, whether it's lunch or coffee or a beer after work or what have you. But at the start of every week, I sit down and I plan this out. And you have to do it, especially with the face-to-face meetings, you have to start working on those weeks in advance because no one's going to do it last minute. But start thinking about that and look at what you think works for you. But I would encourage every agent, 5 phone calls, 5 handwritten notes, 2 appointments just to catch up with someone face-to-face and talk. And in those meetings, find out about what's going on in their lives, not just sit there and talk about yourself. Because they know what you do, trust me, you've been hounding them for years, they know what you do. Yeah.
These are good tidbits. Write that down, put that into your daily practice. Practice this because, obviously, Jordan, you've made huge success of doing just simple things. This is not rocket science. These are simple things that you can do every single day. Angela, did you have daily practices or?
Sure, my methods are a little less structured than Jordan, but I'm just getting started, and I actually was excited to hear what you guys do on a daily basis, because I recognize that's an opportunity for me that I definitely could be doing better about prospecting. My business actually just kind of exploded, and I haven't been as good about creating my database and keeping up with everybody the way that I wanted to. I have my select few that I really have been banging out, and also my past clients, I try to stay in really good touch with them. But what I do is, for me, I like to get out and meet, like I don't sit and make calls, but I want to start doing that. And we're actually gonna be doing that at my office to make everybody do it, not just the new people, but me too, because that's a very good, and it's free and it's easy. But I like to get out and meet people, so I am actively involved in the Clayton Chamber of Commerce, and I'm actively involved in a number of other networking groups that we have, and I'm always out and about doing something in the community, or if we have events here, or just whatever I can do to be seen. And then inevitably, like I said earlier, people ask you how things are going, or they'll say, oh, looks like your real estate business is doing so great, and so, just to know that they remember that you're an agent every week without you having to say it is awesome. And, for me, I don't sit and plan it out quite like he does, but I am always mindful of what am I doing this week, who am I gonna see, who do I need to follow up with. I have a running list of, clients in the pipeline that, you need to follow up with every week to make sure, they're getting like I set everybody up on automatic emails, and so then you have to check in with them once in a while, like he was saying, and so, and I don't personally agree with Jordan as far as that Facebook doesn't count, because I couldn't even quantify how much business I have gotten throughout the years when all of my different businesses, because of Facebook alone. It has been very, very lucrative for me to maintain my presence on social media, and like I said, I just can't even say how many clients I've gotten, because that's just one of those many touches that you do with people to stay top of mind. But I personally think in this day and age, he said he's kind of old school, and so he likes to make the phone calls and send the notes. But I think a Facebook message or a text message to someone who that's how you normally communicate with them, like that, I don't want to talk to you on the phone unless I really have a long conversation to have. But if you just send me a quick text that you're thinking about me, or that just want to see how you're doing, let's go to lunch, to me that's the same as a phone call. I think a lot of millennials, especially, I'm not millennial, I'm 38, I'm older than him, but I think that's also appropriate. However you can get that connection with people is fine. So, but
Yeah.
I hope you don't mind me saying that.
No, not at all. Not at all. And I don't disagree. I can attribute 6 figures of income on an annual basis back to what I do on social media. It is a huge tool, and that's one of the next problems that we'll get to this. I guess the point I was making, it can't be just Facebook.
Right.
Exactly. And you've been signed for 3 years?
2 years.
2 years, gotcha.
Yeah.
So like you, when I was a new agent, there was a vacuum, and this was 2005 when I was getting my start. The industry was very different. Social media was just emerging then. Back then, you still had to have a .edu email address to join Facebook. It wasn't open to the public. You had to be invited to it. And I started using social media for real estate at a very early age, and I got laughed at by all the old fogies in my office who thought it would never be relevant. But anyways, but like you, and also the median age of a realtor was a lot higher than what it is now. The last 6-7 years, there's been a huge push of youth into the industry, and I love it. But what happened to me is, like the both of you, I had a very strong initial start. I got a lot of traction really quickly, and after about 5 to 6 years in, my business started to plateau to where it was just this amount every year. And then I started looking at it to where, okay, I got off the launch pad quickly, I had a lot of rocket fuel in my tanks, and I got to a very big level quickly because I was working hard. But then after that, it's like, okay, now I'm plateaued, and it's good every year. And for me, a lot of these systems that I'm talking about were things that I realized I had to do if I want to continue to get to the next level after I've burned off all my rocket fuel from getting everyone's attention the first few years. These systems that I do is what keeps me running, keeps me going for that next level.
Well, that makes me feel better.
And
Yeah.
that's what you're saying, I've worked a lot with new agents, mid-level agents in the previous career, and to add what you're saying, Jordan, it is so easy to hide behind social media, and I'm sure
Yes.
that's what you're seeing with a lot of the agents. Oh, I sent them a private message, or oh yeah, I said happy birthday on Facebook. You can't just do that. What you're doing, I think, Angelina, that is different from a lot of people is you're actually getting to know these people. You are networking. They know you on a personal basis, but that's a big difference than just sending a private message, right? You're doing the background work, which really, that's all the difference. So, and I agree with what you're saying, both of you.
So most of the stuff that I do is about the same as what they do, making phone calls, the handwritten letters and stuff. The only thing that I would add to that is do something that develops you professionally every day. Like, I know Tiffany mentioned listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
I'm a big reader. I love books. So, you will always find me with a book somewhere in my bag. I definitely recommend that because even, if you're just like reading like a book on sales or something, you're gonna get something from that. Just a side note about phone calls, I know a lot of people don't like making those, and I'm one of those people, but I was in a training at my firm like 2 weeks ago. They forced us into, I think it was like 15 minutes of making phone calls, and we had to call 5 or 6 people that we hadn't talked to in a while. I've had 2 meetings that week. That same night, I had a new client, and then I also had another client who was a brother of the person who I was working with that I had met up with. So I ended up getting a lot of business just from that 15 minutes of making phone calls. I recommend everybody makes phone calls every day. And these are people that I already knew. It's not hard to talk to somebody that you already know.
Right? And what's the worst thing that's gonna happen? I think we get so caught up in our heads, like, oh, they're gonna be like, screw you. And if they do, that's okay. You're not gonna die. We used to host call nights all the time, and we would jot down how many people you contacted and what the call to action was. It was fascinating. How many people got connected with people they would have never been connected with had you not had that environment to feel safe to call. So absolutely, calls are amazing. You guys want to know the secret to success?
Phone calls.
Yes.
Yeah? Do the things you don't want to do.
Yep.
Amen. Every single day, if you don't want to make a call, remember that. And this was, I don't know, I watched a video or something where somebody said that. And I was like, that's so true. Anytime you do not want to do something, make yourself do it, because oftentimes that's going to generate more income than just hanging out, sitting there doing the laundry or whatever else, gets in your way. That you say, I'm going to do this later. Do it now. Which leads me into my next question. Let's talk about how to stay good. Okay. Thank you. That's a compliment. I'll take that. But let's talk about how to stay motivated. So when you don't want to make the phone call, how do you make yourself? Maybe you had a bad night before. Maybe something's going on. There's just drama or whatnot. How do you make yourself do the things you don't want to do?
Just realize that your business is not going to go any further if you're not doing those things. I mean, if you look at it as a must, like this has to get done, then you're just gonna naturally do it. Like, don't avoid the things that you don't wanna do. I don't know, you just kinda have to realize that your business is going to suffer, and if you're okay with that, then don't make the phone call. Don't send a text message to the person you haven't spoken to, but if you really wanna grow, you're gonna have to do those things.
I have 2 different things, because, some days I just don't want to, some days I just want to be off and just be able to, I'm an off-the-chart extrovert, but I have some introverted tendencies, and I know that about myself. So if I'm trying to gear myself up to doing something I don't want to do, something as simple for me as changing whatever environment I'm in is big. If I'm working from home part of the day, okay, I'm gonna get up, get dressed, go to the office, and I'll make my calls there. Or if I've been at the office all day, I'm gonna go get a cup of coffee or whatever. Or I'll negotiate with myself, if it's 4:30 and I don't have my daughter that day and I still haven't made my calls, like, all right, Jordan, I know you wanna have a beer, but I tell you what, you can't have a beer until you've made your 5 calls today. So I'll sit there with my Bluetooth on and I'll make my 5 calls, and then I'm like, thank you, Coors Light, I appreciate that. But ultimately, I'm very big on self-discipline. I think that's been pretty clear in terms of me talking about my systems. But I think Samantha said it perfectly. You have to be willing to live with the consequences. And I've been doing this long enough to where I know if I don't, can I get away with not doing it on one day? Sure, that's fine. But if I don't do these things again and again and again and again, I'll find myself in 2.5 months feeling like my business is slow, and I can sit there and I can tell myself exactly this is why I'm slow. You skipped all these days of making your calls. And at the end of the day, we're all a little bit motivated by money. That's why we do what we do. That's a huge part of the why. It's not the only reason. It can't just be about money, but for a lot of us, money is a motivating factor. And you want to get paid in 2.5 months, pick up the damn phone. It's pretty simple.
I'm an agent that will work 24/7. I mean, I don't have a schedule where I don't work on Sunday. We had an agent one time tell us that they weren't working that weekend, and we were just like, what? Okay, that's fine. So I try not to be too hard on myself. I mean, if I was, working all week and all weekend, and then Monday morning I don't feel like doing anything and I don't have any appointments, then I'm okay with that. Just, walking my dogs a little longer or going to the gym. I mean, it's important to do things for yourself too, because one of my biggest regrets from before is that I put myself last and I just worked, and I really suffered because of that. So, is two books that I've read that have made an impact on me is The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And that book is really just talking about every decision that you make all day, every day, your whole life, no matter what it's about, is leading you to the path of success or the path of failure. So like if you ate a muffin this morning, okay, that's fine, it's just one muffin, but if you're only eating muffins all day long, every day, then eventually, that's not gonna be good for you. Same thing with work. I mean, if you're constantly putting off what you have to do and you're procrastinating and you're never getting your to-do list done, and then in 2 weeks you have no business, you have nothing to show. I mean, it's because of all those decisions you made. So I try to keep in mind like those slight edge decisions that I make on a daily basis. And then also the 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, and I can't remember Stephen Covey. And that book was really difficult for me to get through the very first time, but then after I had been in business a while and went back and read it again, it really clicked. And the thing that I always think about and am impacted by very much is trying to decide when you look at your tasks, what are the urgent but important tasks? What are the urgent but not important tasks? And then what are the non-urgent important tasks and non-urgent non-important tasks? And I guarantee that a lot of us spend a lot more time than we should doing non-urgent, non-important things like Facebook and emails and the laundry and all of that. Laundry is important, but it's not urgent unless it's really, you don't have any more underwear, then yeah, maybe it's urgent, but it's one of those things that you can put off or ask someone else to help you with it, I don't ever feel bad about saying to my husband, well, pick up some dinner on your way home, because I got a meeting, and it's just the way we do it. And I want to focus on if I have urgent, important things that have to get done, then you have to do them. If they're urgent but not important, then maybe they can wait till tomorrow morning. And then of course anything that's not urgent, you just have to kind of plan that out. And so that's kind of what I live by. So I look at what I have to do and I say, nothing is urgent, nothing's pressing, I don't have to do it tonight. Let me stop working at 6 and start drinking my wine. And would it be inappropriate to make calls while you're drinking beer? I don't know.
Makes you more fun on the phone.
Yeah, makes it a little more loose. So.
Another great book, and I love both of those books, I've read them both. I can't remember the name of the author, but the title of the book is so memorable you won't need, and I'm not going to say the actual word, and it's actually a great book. It's called The Subtle Art of Not Giving Up.
Yeah.
It is a tremendous book. It's a book that really focuses on what I was talking about, self-perception and mindset. It is a great read, and it's also a funny read. But The Subtle Art of Not Giving Up is a great read. Mr. Bailey.
Mark Twain said, if your job is to eat a frog, do it first thing in the morning, and if you have to eat two, eat the biggest one first.
Hey, that's so
Yep.
good.
That's
Yes.
great.
Yes.
That's
That
great.
is such great advice, and that's so true, because you know what, if you leave that frog for the afternoon, you're gonna be like, well, there's tomorrow. So, but thank you guys, and we're gonna get through some more of these questions, but one thing I did just wanna say is, based on what you guys are saying, I mean, we are all in the business of generating leads, right? Like, essentially, you can't provide great customer service, and you can't give your clients the best of the best unless you have clients. So our job every single day is to generate leads. Would you guys agree?
Absolutely.
So it's not about generating leads 1,000 different ways, because that can be very overwhelming. And I wanted to mention this because a lot of us can get caught up in all of the new technologies, all of the new ways that we can generate leads and the next best thing. Pick 1 to 3 things that you're gonna do every single day, or building your business plan, like open houses would be one of them, making your daily calls would be another, and then another lead generating activity that you specifically will do, and start there. Maybe it's farming, maybe whatever. Start there and then build on top of that. I feel like we can get so overwhelmed with so many different ways that it can become white noise eventually, and then you're just like, well, I'll work on my logo. So I wanted to say that before we move on, which is not it's not income generating, right? Like, having a great logo is awesome, but it's not gonna give you any money. Did you have a question?
Yeah, you're gonna have time for questions?
We are, yeah, and we're gonna go through these questions right now. So next question, and let's just hit on this quickly. Tell us about listings. You know, listings are gold in our market. Any tips for everyone on how to get more listings?
I'll be brief on this. The number one way to get listings is to give people information they care about. No one cares about, you know, and I'm not being trite with this, but in terms of what you're doing, oh, I sold a house here, that's fine. But if you send people, and this is very easy to do with our MLS. If you have a friend, say they live in Woodcroft, which is a very popular neighborhood in Southwest Durham where I grew up. If I have a friend who lives there, one of the things I might send them once a quarter or something like that is, hey, here's a list of everything that's sold in your neighborhood that's comparable to your house over the last 6 months. Read it if you have any questions, or if you want to know what your home might be worth, let me know. Who wouldn't read that? First of all, they're going to be nosy neighbors, and they're going to want to know what Jane Smith next door sold their house for, and I'll send them that information. And it's also in a quick link if you just send them the CMA summary report from our MLS. It's quick, easy, high value data, and a lot of people, especially in a market as hot as ours, where we've seen the huge amounts of appreciation outside the norm, they find out what they can get for their house, they'll be motivated to sell. So just give people information they care about, and that's a great way to do it. It's just email them, hey, here's everything that's sold in your neighborhood over the last 6 months. If you want to know what your house is worth, give me a call. It's great.
Love that.
And also, anytime you do an open house, you're going to get a lot of neighbors who are going to come by. Have that information with you. Print out 20 copies of the CMA with everything that's sold in that neighborhood over the last year. Whether you're door knocking an hour before the open house, which I love that, because knocking door, hey, I'm holding an open house, here's a list of everything that is sold in your neighborhood over the last year, come on by if you want to talk, because some people will show up and be like, hey, what do you think my house might be worth? I don't know, but give me your name, your number, and your email address, and I'll happy to call you and set an appointment to come out and talk to you about it. High value data is the number one way to get listings in my opinion.
And it doesn't have to be your listing. If you're hosting your own house, it gives you an opportunity to door knock. Angela, did you have anything you wanted to add, or should we move to the next?
That's it, too.
Is that good? Yeah.
Sure.
Did you want to say anything then? or-
Well, I just had really quick, I mean, yeah, I wanted to say, like, if you, well, of course, and, you know, I'm not saying I only do stuff on Facebook, but